Hey everyone, this is Wesley Southard, and I'm here to tell you guys today about a brand new book that I have coming out on December 15th from Death's Head Press. It is my very first short story collection called Resisting Madness Collected Short Fiction, and it contains 13 short stories, 5 of them previously unreleased, and a couple of them written specifically for this collection, and a brand new 20,000 word novella that's the title story of the book, Resisting Madness. The story itself is about a movie director, producer who is filming his very last movie because he needs to spend time with his son, who has a very, very debilitating disease that affects pretty much anybody around him if they're very unlucky. I'm really proud of how this story came out. I'm proud of the entire book, and I'm really, really excited about the cover of the book in particular, from Justin T. Coons. It's phenomenal if you haven't seen it yet. I should be posting it here pretty soon on social media. But right now, as a little teaser, I'd like to read you the first chapter of the novella. So let's give this a shot, and hopefully by the end of it, if you guys like it, you'll pre-order the book online when it comes out. But like I said, December 15th. So, first chapter, Resisting Madness. Gloria's agonizing screams engulfed the tiny hospital room, and I could not have been a happier man. I've been waiting for that day for most of my life. I know. It's a weird thing for a guy to say he's been dreaming of being a father since he was little, but there I was, heart swelling with pride and pockets full of bubblegum cigars. My little boy was almost here. Over the course of 36 hours, yes, you heard me right, 36 miserable, sleepless fucking hours, I had gripped my wife's hand like my whole life depended on it. I helped her to concentrate on her breathing, massaged her back with a tennis ball as instructed in the Lamaze classes, and got her anything the doctors allowed me to bring her. I would have done anything to ease Gloria's pain. I would have killed for her. Nearly 2 days of not showering had plastered most of her long blonde hair against her head, and the rest had clumped up and was stuck to her sweat-stained pillow. Combined with my own ripe odors, the glossy white delivery room was a cloud of stink so thick you could slice it like warm sourdough. I recalled being so damn hungry it made me sick. I sometimes went days without eating while I was on set, depending on how busy I was prepping scenes or applying prosthetics. But the older I got, the more I couldn't handle going that long between meals. But my wife was only allowed ice chips during labor, then I would suffer with her. It was the very least I could do. I remember the way she looked that day. Even though she was a mess, she was still so beautiful. Everything I grew up wanting in a woman. As cliche as it sounded, I did not deserve her. She was an aspiring actress, well on her way to the top of Hollywood. I was slumming it in the back room, creating makeup effects and monsters like my heroes before me. She could have been with anyone, any pretty smile or tight ass with a bigger paycheck. But she chose me. This schlub. That fucking bitch. Regardless of how I feel now, back then I loved her like crazy. We grew up in Hollywood together. The further she ascended to stardom, the higher I rose in the special effects world. Since my teens, I had aimed to be the next Tom Savini, and I'd be damned if I wasn't going to surpass his illustrious career by the time I was in my 30s. With Gloria by my side, I could have done anything. And we did. The nurse handed me another damp rag, which I used to pat Gloria's forehead. Keep breathing, baby. You've got this. He's almost here. Teeth gritted, Gloria grunted. I am breathing, dickhead. I've been breathing my whole life. I know how to breathe. I grimaced. I know, I'm just trying to help. You want to help? Have this fucking baby for me. Baby, believe me, if I could, I would gladly junior the shit out of this for you. Unfortunately, I don't have childbearing hips. Through the pain, she muttered a laugh. That movie sucked. Yeah, it's no Kindergarten Cop. Martin, Dr. Miner injected, peering up between my wife's legs. Would you like to talk Schwarzenegger films, or would you like to help Gloria to push? Sorry, Doc. It's quite all right, he said, dipping back down between the stirrups. And for your information, Twins was a much better film than both of those. I chuckled. In what world? Gloria, I need you to push, the doctor snapped. He's crowning now. It looks like he's ready to finally come out. Quickly, I knelt down and got close to my wife's face. You hear that, baby? Just a few more big pushes. I'm right here with you. You can be right here for me about a foot further back, she groaned. Your breath smells like shit. Sorry, I said, standing back up. Dr. Miner eyed me. Would you like to come down here and watch your son meet the world, Daddy? I thought about it, then shook my head. Nah, I think I'm good. I'd rather remember what that looked like down there before she gives birth. The doctor snickered, and Gloria blurted out a long, painful scream. Dr. Miner regained his composure. All right, Gloria, I need you to take in a deep breath through your nose. And as you exhale, give me one good push. Can you do that for me? Gloria nodded vigorously. Okay, deep breath. And push. It seemed like hours after that. I kept my hand firmly in hers, even though her grip brought my tears to my eyes. I didn't need the help. I was already crying. In those long moments, I was running the future in my mind's eye, passing on my loves and passions to my son in hopes he would follow in my footsteps. Watching movies with him, taking him to Dodgers games, eating the biggest pizza we could find. My wife may have been my best friend, but at that moment, she was giving birth to my best buddy. All 8 pounds and 5 ounces of Nolan Michael Weiger was born at 5:52 p.m. on January 18th. Nothing was ever the same after that. I didn't see him at first. I only heard his cries and the quick snip of the umbilical cord. Tears streamed down my cheeks, and I buried my lips into my wife's. You did it, babe. Still catching her breath, she nodded and added her tears to mine. Nolan continued to wail as the nurse swaddled him in a blue blanket. He's got your lungs, I laughed. That's your whining, I hear, she added. Dr. Miner stood up and took off his gloves. Congratulations, you two. Would you like to hold him, the nurse asked us. Yes, Gloria croaked with a dry throat. My newborn in her arms, the nurse walked over to my side of the bed. He's so precious. She stopped walking. Her eyes were locked onto my child's. I still couldn't see my son, but her wide, horrified eyes told me something was wrong. Nurse? She didn't move, didn't speak. Her eyes remained as wide as they could possibly stretch. Her lips gradually opened in a tight O, then pulled back over her teeth like a cornered animal. The nurse's chest hitched in and out, and her arms trembled over my child's diminutive weight. I stood and stepped toward the nurse. Nurse? What's the matter? What's wrong? Then she screamed. I've spent most of my life on movie sets. Being in the horror business, I had heard all manner of screams from actresses, ranging from casting call amateurs all the way up to the women who were paid the big bucks to find the terror deep down in their guts. I was numb to it by that point, had heard it every which way to Sunday. But this was different. This was real. This was pure, soul-crushing pain. Dr. Miner scrambled to her. My God, Nurse Savory, what in the hell are you doing? Gloria yelled, What's wrong with my baby? The doctor, now standing next to her, had gone silent. His head was down, staring at my swaddled child, who wailed right along with the nurse. I stepped up between them, desperate to take my son in my arms. Give me my child right now. I couldn't hear what the doctor said, but between screams he whispered, Those eyes. Then he too added to the noise. Gloria tried to sit up in bed, but she was still too weak. She fell backwards, crying, What's wrong with my baby? What's wrong? Give me my baby. Heart pounding, I wedged myself in between the two and reached for my child. Two things happened very quickly. The nurse threw her arms up and clutched at her ears. The doctor grabbed me by the shoulders and screamed directly into my face. In a blind panic, I twisted from his grip and dove to the floor. I thought for sure I would miss Nolan and my child would thump on the floor right in front of me, but thankfully the only thump was made by me as I dropped to my side, arms out. Nolan fell into my waiting arms. His frightened cries were pure pain to my ears. My instincts took over. I pulled his tiny pinkish body close, his head buried in my chest, and scrambled backwards across the floor to the bed. Above me, Gloria bawled as she was too drained to raise up. A few feet away, Dr. Miner and Nurse Savory continued to scream and thrash about the room. Nurse Savory grabbed the instrument tray and, flinging the contents across the room, began to bash her head with a stainless steel plate. On his knees, the doctor pulled at the wreath of gray hair around his balding head, tearing out bloody chunks by the handful. Still screaming, he crawled toward the large vaginal speculum on the floor and shoved the stainless steel tool into his mouth. When the instrument wouldn't go in any further, he twisted the trigger. He squeezed the trigger, and the two sides widened. From across the room, I heard his jaw muscles crack. Blood dribbled from the doctor's lips, followed by a torrent of red-tinged vomit, which pushed the instrument from his mouth to land with a clang among the gore. I felt helpless, unable to comfort my terrified wife, or the child I held against my chest. Nolan wailed and wiggled against me, and it took everything in my power to not look into his face. The chaos before me instructed me otherwise. The nurse grunted and tossed the steel plate aside, then swiped a scalpel from the floor. She turned toward me, still screaming her lungs out, and drove the knife directly into her right eye. I yelled and pushed myself backwards until I could go no further. I pushed my knees up to my chest, mindful of Nolan, just as the nurse fell face first into the linoleum floor. The scalpel made a wet swicking sound as it drove into her brain. In his own agony, Dr. Miner stood up and ran for the wall. Over and over he bashed his head into the bank of hydrogen nozzles. Soon he sank to his knees, and after one more headbutt, he fell over to his side. His final screams dissolved into wet gurgles that oozed onto the floor. Now, the only one left screaming was my wife. Her hands frantically reached for my head, pulling at my hair and shirt collar. I sat there shaking. I didn't dare let go of my son. I refused to look into his newborn eyes. And that is the first chapter of the brand new novella in my collection, Resisting Madness, collected short fiction. Like I said before when I started reading, I'm actually really, really proud of this story. It's an idea I'd had for a long time. It originally was just going to be a short story, and as I started outlining it and fleshing out the characters and fleshing out the story, I realized it was going to be much longer than any short story that I could have written. But I'm really happy that it came out to be a novella, because I think, now I'm not sure yet, but I think this could easily become a small series for me. I'm not sure yet, but I have an idea for a possible sequel, but I can't exactly say what it would be right now. But what I can say is I'm really happy with the way this book came out, and the story, and all of the stories in it. I know this has been a long time coming for me. I've always been a big fan of short story collections. I've got a ton of them on my shelves back here. And to finally have my own is just incredibly exciting. So, like I said before, December 15th, from Death's Head Press, it'll be available on Amazon, and I'm sure barnesandnoble.com. And if you're lucky enough, a Thunderstorm Books limited edition of it will be out, I believe, either late this year or early next year. I believe early next year. But it's only going to be going to their private reserve subscribers. So if you're lucky to be one of those private reserve subscribers, then you'll be getting that link soon, hopefully. But other than that, thank you for coming to this video, and thank you for coming to my YouTube channel again. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you guys soon. And again, December 15th, Resisting Madness. See you guys soon.